I will first start with how this whole thing started, so you have a little bit of background. In 2006, I felt some sense of overwhelm with sickness, and we just had moved into our own house, and I had 2 young kids, toddler age, and yeah, sickness was rheumatoid arthritis, which I got after the birth of my first child, and I was just overwhelmed with everything. And so I started to try different methods to get a handle on this, like cleaning up the living room and putting all the Lego bricks into baskets. But after several attempts of getting a handle on all my too long to-do lists, I sat down one evening and realized all I want is inner peace. I don't want a nicer living room. I just want this inner peace. And this was like, boom, this ignition, which said to the universe, oh, she wants inner peace. And then I was put on this path. Yeah? The next day I came up on a web page which talked about homeopathy and also about reincarnation. So I was into homeopathy at that time because of trying to cure my rheumatoid arthritis with alternative means. And so I read everything about homeopathy, but then this universe led me on a website which had not only something about homeopathy on it, but also about little kids who started talking spontaneously about reincarnation. And that piqued my interest, and I started reading. And from that time on, I was sucked into reading, and I felt like a kid in a candy store. So that shook my worldview quite a bit. I came from a scientific materialistic worldview with only some, well, my religious background was like secular Protestantic background. We went to church like for Christmas maybe, and maybe for Easter. So that was all there was to it. So church was basically just for funerals and for weddings and maybe for Christmas. So that's the whole journey turned my worldview upside down a lot. And in addition to that intense reading period, also the guidance started coming in. It was like this whole universe was one organism, one living organism, which was conspiring to guide me. And it came on all different channels. And I was first like, what's this? What's going on? Yeah, you know, from my materialistic worldview, this was a bit strange. Like, does this really mean something when I see number sequences on clocks? Does this, or on license plates, does this really mean something? Or when the clock says 11:11 every time I look at it or something like that there. And so guidance started to come in on all channels and teach me. And as of 2013, I was pushed to share this, first with colleagues and then online. And I had a lot of resistance to that because of fear and, you know, what do people say? And I live in this scientific, materialistic background, nerd environment at work, yeah. And then I had, because of my resistance, I had warning dreams. I had dreams that told me, oh, you're procrastinating. You're not doing what we told you to do. And I said, I shrugged this off and I thought, okay, it's just a dream. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And then I had a dream that, so I had 2 warning dreams, and then I had a 3rd warning dream, and that said, that told me something, that I saw a model of a throat, transparent throat, and there was a tiny blue feather in it, like tickling. And I thought, well, what the heck does that mean? Yeah, tickling in the throat. And then a few months later, not only everything in the house became clogged, like clogged drains, clogged shower head, clogged coffee machine, clogged everything, but also my throat got breathing issues. And I went to an alternative healer with that issue, and he cured it, like he did some Reiki or something like that. And then 2 weeks after this was gone, I heard this inner voice, write that book, you're late. And I thought, whoa, what does that mean? And then I thought, oh, if this is a guide or something like that, and I'm sure he's going to come again and announce this again if this is important. And then I 2 hours later, I sat down on my couch and slammed the back of my head against the wall. And I thought, okay, that's my sign. This was nothing in my fantasy or imagination, this voice like, write that book, you're late. So that's how it started. And this whole thing pushed me to come out and do a blog and share my journey and share what I learned. And part of that is also sharing about guidance. So guidance, I've prepared something. I did this workshop in 2017, and I'm going to share something here. Guidance can come in many different input channels, not just inner input channels, which are blue here on this side, left-hand side, but also outer input channels. This is the green part on the right-hand side. And as I said, the universe is moved by consciousness like a giant unseen hand, invisible hand, which orchestrates events. Now I will go through the input channels. Okay, so I will go through all these and give some short examples and say what I mean by that. So let's start with an inner voice. This is this one. It comes in as an inner voice, like blocks of, it can also come like blocks of thought. Then there is visions here. So the visions are like in, for example, like in daydreaming, or if you think back how you got up this morning and you think about how your feet touched the floor, what the floor looked like, what the wall looked like, how the scene looked like when you went to the bathroom. That's an inner vision. Visions can also be like after images on the retina sometimes. So when you have looked into a bright candle flame or in a black and white picture, and then you close your eyes afterwards, and then you have this after image on the in your eyes, that a vision can also come sometimes like that. So the next thing is songs stuck in the mind. This one. So sometimes I would notice that I had some melodies, some tunes stuck in my mind playing for hours or days, and then like after 3 days I would notice, what is this? What's playing the entire time in my mind? And then I would start to think, okay, so which song is this? And then I would try to remember at least one line. You know, English is not my first language, so I usually don't understand the when I hear a song, an English song, I don't have this, I don't know what the text means, the lyrics mean. And then, but maybe I can remember at least one line of it. So then I'm able to search this and then I can find out about the lyrics and contemplate what they mean for me. It can come as an inner knowing, this one. So sometimes we just know something. I don't know. Once I had a conversation with someone and I just knew he was lying to me. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew he was lying. And okay, so that was annoying, and it was true, he was lying. So it can come as emotions, this one, like joy when we are on track, and an uneasy feeling, or for example, I felt this feeling of guilt when I was off track. And I knew I had to do something, and I was pushed to share this, and I sort of shrugged it off and said, oh, whatever, I don't feel like doing this, but I I felt guilty, like I knew I had to do it, but I didn't want to. Okay, so what's the next thing? It can come as an inner urge, this one. Like it's, for example, the urge in the morning to turn and look at the alarm clock, like just 2 minutes before it would go off in the morning. Or here I have to share another story from a book. There is a book by Ken Wapnick about the scribe of A Course in Miracles, Helen Schuckman. And Helen, and he shares how Helen was one day very worried about the health of Ken because it was cold outside, and she said to Jesus, please, I don't want Ken to get a cold, and please, he should dress warmly when he goes outside. The weather is so cold, I'm worried. And Jesus said to her, don't worry, I will take care of that. And then Ken reported later that he felt the inexplicable strong urge to go back and put something over his shoes, like I think it's called gaiters, like you put like a protection over the shoes so that they don't get wet or cold or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's how it works. So someone wants something, and then source or whatever comes in and says, don't worry, I will take care of this, and puts a strong urge in the mind of someone else to do something, on the gut of someone else, that he suddenly feels he needs to do something, and he doesn't know where this comes from, but he needs to do it. So the book is called Absence from Felicity. Absence from Felicity by Ken Wapnick, and it's the story of Helen Schuckman. And it can also come, one input channel is sickness. So for example, sickness can have many different causes, but one cause can be resistance to guidance. There are many stories in the literature from people who have experienced shamanic sickness. They are told to do something, and then they resisted because they didn't feel like doing it, and they got sick. And then after they healed, they knew they had to obey the calling. And last on this side is physical sensations, like a tingling on the leg when guides want to connect. Or I once had I once felt a sensation between my spine and my right shoulder blade, and it was as if someone was poking his finger right in there, and it came together with the inner voice that said, sit down and write the next book chapter. And I said, no, I have something to do. I have to do the laundry first. And then this voice said, no, you have to sit down and write. And all the time I had this feeling of someone poking me in the back. And when I sat down, the feeling went away. So it was really strange. I also said to my guides, can I really see something? I want to see something. And then I got light flashes on the retina. That's a bit like the visions part up here, but on retina images. And it was always like, it was not a like tiny pinprick light flash, and it was like after I got a thought that was from guidance, then I would have, as a little confirmation or a little heads up, I would see this tiny light flash. Always comes on the left eye, but in my case, and I thought that's nice, an additional feature of confirmation. Okay, so that was the inner input channels for guidance. I will talk about the outer input channels. First, of course, we can go and ask someone for advice. We can search for a psychic medium and get a channeling. Then there can be signs. And here I mean something like seeing repeated numbers, or finding dimes, or finding little feathers, or seeing animals, which can have a shamanic meaning. Then there can be pictures, words, and songs from the radio. So pictures, yeah, of course, pictures you everywhere on the internet or on the street on advertisements. It can be like the words can be, for instance, like what is written on a t-shirt. Or it can be overhearing a conversation between people coincidentally. Or it can be the title of spam emails. My guidance uses spam emails. Titles in social media feeds. Like if I have a question and then, or something, they want to get a message across, they use my WordPress feed, and I get messages that are important to what I'm going through at the moment. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing is a divination tool. This is the symbol for tarot cards, but you can also use book divination, like have a question in mind and then go to your bookshelf, pull out a book and take a deep breath and open the book at random, and then look whether your eye meets a certain phrase and whether that means something to you. And there are more divination tools, of course. Okay, so what the next thing is synchronicities, like events that are linked, that don't seem to have any cause why they should be linked, but they look like they have a deeper meaning. And then the last thing here is patterns of events. That is when when events keep happening, and they have something in common, and finding out what the meaning of this is a bit like playing this game of 4 pictures, 1 word. I don't know, do you know that? So there's this game of 4 pictures and 1 word. You have 4 pictures, and you have to guess what the 1 word is, which describes all of them. So what did we have recently? My husband played it and came with this question to me, and I wasn't able to guess it, but it had 1 picture said carpe diem. The next picture showed a statue of Caesar. The next picture showed the continent of South America, and the 4th picture showed a couple doing with a fancy dress, and they were doing Latin competition dancing. Okay, so what was the word? So below the pictures, you get some hints. You get the letters which make up the word, a bunch of letters, and you have to pick which letters you want to put to the word. And so the word for this was Latin. Okay, so it was a Latin inscription. It was the Caesar's Latin. Then it was Latin America and Latin dancing. And finding these what these patterns mean can sometimes be a bit like playing this game of 4 pictures, 1 word. Okay. For example, I will share some story here. I was thinking about, should I, I'm currently posting once a week for my blog, and I thought maybe I should do twice a week, and I would be willing to do that. And the inner voice said, yeah, go ahead to post twice a week, great decision, we applaud you for that commitment. And I thought, okay, it's not convenient, but I'm going to do it. And then like everything started to go wrong. The basil plant in my kitchen died. My son suddenly started talking at the lunch table. Oh, you know, Mom, like a few years back when I ate so much chocolate, oh, it was just too much chocolate. And then the fox symbol started turning up. And I thought, what is fox symbol? And at this time, my son was giving a talk about the Nefex music duo. And in this talk, yeah, it was for a school presentation in music. And in this presentation, he mentioned that this Nefex duo had put themselves the challenge of doing one song per week for 100-week period. Oh, okay, and so then after contemplating for a while, I came up on the meaning of all this. Okay, the basil died because I put too much water in it and the roots started to turn bad because they were soaked in water and they got, I don't know, mold or whatever, all mushy. And then, okay, eating too much chocolate is too much. My son said it's too much chocolate. Like, so posting it's too much is like too much chocolate. And the fox symbol said every time the fox turned up, it was like, okay, you have to post once a week, like they did one song per week. Oh, and I even after I posted twice a week, what even then happened afterwards is like I usually get the posts that I post also sent as an email to my inbox. But this time, the email was spammed. For the very first time, it landed in my spam folder for whatever reason. So I had to put it on the allowed list afterwards, my own email, that it wouldn't land in the spam folder again. So this is what it can look like. If I'm off track, events start happening, I have to figure out what it means. So that also I also want to say all these input channels are working together. It can be like, and one day there's a dream and then next morning there's words and pictures. For example, first I had a dream. I was pushed to go online and share my story, and I had a dream about I was standing at the side of a pool, and in this pool, people were having fun. They were in the pool, splashing around in the water, and had these oversized life jackets on. And I was standing at the pool and thought, well, the water is shallow, and they have these oversized, huge life jackets on. What does it mean? And I woke up with a song in the mind. Okay, so first a dream, then a song in the mind, and the song in the mind says, a little party never hurt nobody. I don't know whether you know that. And it was like telling me, okay, just go jump into the pool, play with the others online, play, have fun, and don't worry, it's not dangerous at all. You don't need an oversized life jacket for that. You're not going to drown. Okay, so I contemplated that, and then I went to work and sat down at my PC at work, and one web page that I opened had an advertisement, and this had a picture on it of a woman standing on a what's called a jump board, some board where you can jump into the water very high, like 10 meters above the water, and you look down and you say, okay, I'm going to jump into this. And then below the picture is said in German, dare to jump. Yeah, so this was all coming together, like the dream, the dream, the song in the mind, and then the picture and the words afterwards. This was all coming together. So all these input channels, they all work together, and it's like the whole universe is like this one organism which speaks to us. Okay, so this was about the input channels and some examples. And now I'll just go shortly about how to work with it and some challenges. So how to work with it, if you want to work with it, it starts with intention, so that you have the intention, you want to do it. That's very important in anything we do. Then the next thing is you have to have the belief. The next thing is belief. Belief that the inner world is connected to the outer world, and that this is in fact possible, that the whole universe moves as if guided by a single unseen hand and wants to tell you something, wants to convey a message. This is the belief that, for example, my resistance to my task can show up in, can be mirrored in clogged drains and in a clogged throat chakra. Then the next thing which is important, so we had intention, belief. The next thing which is important is the habit of paying attention to dreams, to songs in the head, of course, songs in the radio also, to the inner voice, to the signs we get, and the synchronicities and patterns of events, and etc. And together with this habit of paying attention, it's a good habit to keep a record and write everything down into a journal with a date, maybe also a hashtag on it. For so if you use if you don't journal with pen and paper, but on the computer in a typewritten file, then it's I found it convenient afterwards to be able to search for hashtags or to search for words or to search for dates in order to like understand what the message was. And the connecting thread of all this becomes visible in retrospect. So as I have gone through my journal in retrospect, I could see the connecting thread between the inner voice that told me to come out of hiding and share, and then the dreams I had that said, oh, you are off track, you are procrastinating, and if you are still off track, if you don't do what you are have been told to do, then you will suffer the consequences. And then afterwards, this clogged this breathing issue in the throat, and then afterwards this this voice that told me, write that book, you are late, and the slap on the back of my head that I got afterwards when I sat down on the couch and slapped my head against the wall. So that's the things I want to say, how to work with it. Intention, belief that it's possible, the habit of paying attention and keeping a record. And of course, then taking time to contemplate what this means. I spend a lot of time journaling, and not just journaling about my frustration at work, about my anger, but also about what I've noticed, and in these terms of these guidance signs, and contemplating what could this mean. Now, the possible challenges. This is the last part now. So every input channel that we have here comes with a different set of challenges. But if you want to look at that, there is the Divine Guidance Workshop script, which I have linked to, and there I go in detail about through all the different input channels. But I want to pick some of the challenges that are common for all of these input channels. And the first one is noticing. The challenge of can be challenging to just notice these things. So that means pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, like walk with wide open eyes and wide open ears and say, okay, I noticed something here. I know, and then this happened, and I got to write everything down, and I got to contemplate everything and collect everything. It can be a challenge to remember. In addition to noticing, it can be a challenge to remember dreams. And it can be a challenge to remember part of the lyrics of songs in order to be able to Google the lyrics and find out what they could mean. Then the next challenge is interpreting it. So when we get signs and words and whatever visions, what does it mean? And I don't have a recipe for it. I just can give you some hints what to pay attention to, or what the pitfalls are, what to consider. So one thing to consider is the interpretation can be literal, or the meaning can be metaphorical. So that's the first thing to decide. Is it literal or is it metaphorical? If it's metaphorical, then of course you can find out, so what does it mean? You can start to write to either look up some meaning, like if you see animals, then you can say, okay, is it I usually look up shamanic animal, I don't know if you see penguin or fox or whatever, then I look up fox shamanic meaning, or penguin shamanic meaning, and then I get on the internet, I get a list of what it could mean. Or you can associate freely and say, okay, for me, maybe in the internet it says something about penguin, but for me, penguin means something very different. I have my own meaning of penguin. For example, for me, I've danced a lot in my life, ballroom dancing, Latin dancing, and competition. Was very much into it, was my passion. And for me, I cannot dance anymore, sadly, because of my arthritis. It often comes up in dreams. And I think for me, it's always used now as a metaphor for communicating. So communicating my journey, communicating this entire stuff. So always when my guides want to tell me something, this is about communicating this stuff to the world or to other people, then they come with this image of I'm planning to do a dance, I'm preparing to do a dance, I really want to get on the floor and dance, and now after I've done something like this, then I would get a dream where I have really danced. So it's for me, in my personal, so to speak, dictionary of meanings, dancing is connected to communication. So what I want to convey is that the meaning is not the meaning which is written on the internet in some dream dictionary or in some dictionary about what do angel numbers mean, but the meaning is what it means for you. Okay, so there's about the numbers, when we talked about signs here, there are sometimes numbers that we see, like what does it mean when the number 2 comes up all the time, or what does it mean when the number 5 comes up all the time? And there's a short description of angel numbers by Doreen Virtue, for example. So I've adopted this and I said, okay, for me, number 5 means change. But then I met someone else who said, no, for me, number 5 means you're halfway there. Okay, so for her, it means something different, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so we had literal or metaphorical meaning. Then with regard to interpreting the stuff, the next thing to decide is it a description of the status quo, of the as is status, or is it an advice to do something? When I had a time where I always came across people who just had an accident or something, and there was someone lying on the floor and had to be nursed back to health, and it happened quite often. It was like a pattern of events, and I wondered, what does it mean? Does it mean I've been through a breakthrough? I am in a breakthrough? Does it mean I'm going to meet people who are in a breakthrough? I wasn't sure, but for me it was like, it meant like I was like an announcement. I was going to meet people. It was like a metaphor that I was going to meet people who have been in breakthrough, breakdown, crisis, transformative situations. That's what I took it to mean. That's what was my interpretation at that time. So another thing is it can be an announcement, or it can be a warning, for example, or it can be an advice to do something, or it could be an answer to a prayer. Like, I don't know, we have prayed for something and then something comes up and then we wonder what it means. Maybe it's just the answer to the prayer. So the next thing to pay attention to, what is the time frame that is that the announcement is for. So sometimes I got some things, some pattern of events, and that looked like, and it was in fact for the next 24 hours where something would happen. But it could also be an announcement that says, okay, this is what's up for the next 2 years or so. So the time frame isn't always clear when we look at the interpretation of this. So these are the points I want to mention when it comes to interpreting it. Is it literal or metaphorical? Is it a description of the as is status quo, or is it an advice to do something? Is it an announcement or a warning of something which is to come? Is it an answer to a prayer? And what is the time frame? I don't have an answer for this, but I just want to make sure that I convey that these are the things to pay attention to.